Gibson,
Aye.
Hill, Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye. Ezra's here. You guys just turned on the camera about 2 seconds ago for us to be able to hear you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm here.
okay, Middleton.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.
Minutes are approved on a vote of 9-0. Corporation Council reports.
You should have received the IDIM semi-monthly report. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, contact me. There is no litigation report for this.
All right. Anything from the controller at this time?
Nothing from the controller's office.
Any committee or board reports? Hearing none, then Amanda Goff, you here? Amanda had requested.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute. I'm here.
All right. Amanda, you have the floor.
Okay. I'm gonna share my screen here. Hold on one second. Sorry, my internet's going a little slow here for some reason. Can you guys see my screen?
Nope.
No. It says that I'm screen sharing. Do you guys see my screen?
We can.
Okay. Okay, you can. Okay. I'm just trying to make it bigger. Okay. All right, well, it's not letting me make it bigger for some reason, so I'll just try to go with what I have here. So my name is Amanda Goff. I'm the Director of Development and Client Resources for an organization called KICKIT, which stands for Kids in Crisis Intervention Team. And we serve all of Johnson County. We help homeless and at-risk youth from ages 16 through 25. And let me try to get minutes. For some reason, it's not letting me go through my slides. I apologize. It was working but as soon as I need it to work, it stops. So
That's the way it usually goes.
Murphy's Law.
okay. Well, now it closed out of all of it. All right. So I will just talk. So the way that we serve the homeless youth in Johnson County is we have a drop-in center here in Franklin, Indiana, and on Commerce Drive. We're getting ready to open our new drop-in center. We have been moving into it. We're waiting for our permit for occupancy. We're here just in the same building behind the Interchurch Food Pantry. And at our facility, we see clients. We have youth development coaches who work with the clients one-on-one to help them with their goals, such as obtaining and maintaining housing, employment, and budgeting. We also have an emergency food and hygiene pantry at our facility to help with those needs, as well as a laundry facility for them. We have 2 washers and 2 dryers for them to be able to come and do laundry, as well as we are building a shower currently for them to be able to come and take showers at the facility if that is something that they need. So we've been around for 11 years, but because we are in Franklin, sometimes we find that other areas in Johnson County, like Greenwood, aren't really aware of who we are and what we do. And so that's really why I wanted to kind of talk to you guys today and just give you some information again about who we are and what we're doing. One of the things that we tend to come up against in Johnson County when it comes to homelessness and youth homelessness is that it's a fairly invisible problem. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, because we don't see the kinds of homelessness that we might in, Marion County, downtown Indianapolis. Sometimes we think that because we don't see it, that it doesn't exist. However, we have a current full caseload because we only have two part-time case managers. We have 23 current clients that we are serving with our youth development coaching program, as well as other clients that we see that we help sometimes with one-time assistance with our food pantry, hygiene pantry, as well as we do have other initiatives where we serve the community at large, such as our shoe drive for shoes for back to school. We also just did an Easter basket and meal distribution for the whole community as well. So those are some of the kinds of things that we do. We are wanting to kind of raise awareness so that people that come across homeless youth or youth that are in need know where to send, where you guys can send people. I know that we do have resources here in Johnson County. A lot of them are located in Franklin. And so we're wanting to kind of just make our presence more known in Greenwood and help you guys know how to reach us and contact us and how to contact the resources that you need. Should you guys come up, I know citizens contact you guys on a regular basis for help, where to go. The Johnson County Helpline is always a great place to refer people as well. But if you do ever come up, if you do come across a person who's 16 or through 25 who's homeless or at risk for becoming homeless in the Greenwood area, we will definitely, I have all of this in my slides, and so it's kind of hard to go through how I was going to without that in front of me. But the other things that I wanted to talk about were the Greenwood specific numbers, which I just talked to Jill Lambert today. She's the McKinney-Vento rep for the Greenwood Community School Corporation, and they currently have 128 homeless students in the Greenwood School District. So that might come as kind of a shock to you guys, but homelessness, as we refer to it, as the McKinney-Vento Act refers to anyone who is the traditional homeless living on the streets or another place not meant for habitation. Also, people who are living doubled up, who don't have a permanent address. So families that, due to economic hardship, are living with another family. A lot of times there isn't enough space for them. They don't have their own address. So that counts as homelessness. And also people who are living in motels. That is not a permanent dwelling and is not intended to be. And there are all of the motels in the area are pretty packed with people who are living there permanently. And this is a hard situation for students to be in. So another way that we're trying to work with the school corporations to come in and do some prevention. So talking about homelessness, talking about the risks, helping teachers and counselors be able to identify those risks, and helping to start working with the students before they become homeless. So that's a big initiative that we're trying to do as well right now. We served 13 clients in the Greenwood area last year. And as you can see, with those numbers of it being 124 students in the Greenwood School District, that we definitely could be helping a lot more in the Greenwood area, which is, again, why I wanted to talk to you guys. A big reason why people I think that we're seeing a rise in homelessness in our area is because of the lack of affordable housing. And so that is another thing that I definitely wanted to talk about. I had facts and figures and a chart and all of that to show you, but needless to say that we know that the median rent amount falls around the $1,000 a month range in Johnson County. And in order to be able to afford a house like that, according to the fact that we're only supposed to be spending 28 to 30% of our income on our housing, someone would need to make about $25 an hour or $48,000. So there are a lot of jobs and a lot of people that are not making that amount of money. And so they are forced into these situations where they are becoming evicted with no place to go, doubling up with family members, living in motels. The current amount that it costs to stay in Town Suites, which is a motel in the Greenwood area, is over $1,300, which is more than most people's mortgage. This places people in the situation where they can't ever get out. They don't have a way to save up the money for a down payment to ever get anywhere else. Another place that we see a lot of clients coming to us from the Greenwood area is Bella Vista. And we are currently, I would like you guys to know that we are currently working with Bella Vista and with their social workers. I have a meeting actually next week with the person who's in charge of their discharge planning there, to make sure that they are working with us or with other organizations to make sure that there's a plan in place, a solid plan when they're discharging their patients, because currently that is a place where we're seeing a lot of clients becoming homeless. And I only mostly see the 16 through 25-year-olds, but I get a lot of calls outside of our age range where I have to refer them to other places. So I would just encourage you guys that I know that affordable housing is an issue in our entire county. I know that when I looked at the IHCDA website, when you go to the IHCDA website and do a search for the 46143 zip code, and you look for affordable housing, four apartment complexes show up. And of those 4 apartment complexes, all of them have 6-month to 2-year waiting lists. So the options are very few. Obviously, I understand that there are sometimes hesitations about bringing affordable housing into communities. However, if you look at the research, which I was going to show you a nice, like I said, a table showing all those things, that it actually lowers when people have stable housing, when they aren't being evicted or having to move constantly because of housing instability, they actually have better income or outcomes, which include better educational outcomes. They have lower amounts of hospitalizations. They have lower rates of crime. And so I think that that's something that as a community, we really need to put our heads together and try to figure out a solution to. Kick-It is currently working to build a permanent supportive housing complex, and we will be doing that hopefully in the near future. However, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there are no transitional housing, no permanent supportive housing, and no homeless shelters anywhere in Johnson County. So when I get a call, I have no place to put a client that calls me and says, I'm homeless and I don't have anywhere to sleep tonight. So we have to put them in motels or get really creative on finding a place for them to stay, because we don't have any of those things in our county whatsoever. Or we have to send them to Marion County or to Bloomington, which is very inconvenient for them. Especially some of them already have jobs and they're trying to do the best that they can, and then we're having to send them away. So I just really wanted to raise a little bit of awareness about the state of the homeless population in our county. Some of the barriers we come up against, such as the lack of affordable housing and the fact that we don't have any homeless shelters. And then ask you guys to do what you can by advocating for these things, helping come up with solutions. We are, Ezra Hill and I are going to be having a community stakeholders meeting either later this month or next month, where we're going to gather people in the Greenwood area who are invested in the community and improving the community, to kind of come together and talk about the issues that we're seeing and how maybe we can brainstorm to help remedy some of these problems together and work together. So I would invite you guys, Ezra can give you guys the details when we iron that out. But I would love to have as many of you guys come that are interested in being a part of the solution. Obviously, using your platform to advocate for the homeless youth in Johnson County, as well as we do have volunteer opportunities, donation opportunities. We have several events coming up this year. And since I wasn't able to show you all the slides that have all that information, I will email those to Mike, and hopefully he can email those to you. So if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Any questions for Amanda this time? All right, I look forward to receiving that information. So thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, this is the opportunity that we set aside time for members of the audience to address the council concerning items that are on the agenda. So if you're listening in tonight and would like to speak to the council about items on the agenda, please speak up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Well, I don't know who wants to go first, but I am Randy Gooden. Many of you know me. 1157 Central Park Boulevard South, Greenwood, Indiana, 46143. And I would just like to speak on behalf of the ordinance that is before you, 21-12 tonight, in regards to the rezone for an item that I feel was kind of rushed through the council with a little notice to the citizens the last round when it went through a quick read. And I know this is for a rezone, not for the tax abatements. But looking at this and the property that is out there, I would like to ask the council to please consider rejecting this. And here's my reasoning behind this. I'm sure some of you saw my post that I had out on the page, but for those who did not, I want to restate my arguments against a organization who resides in Illinois, not in Indiana. CA Development. I'm sorry, wasn't quite ready. I was hoping Amanda would speak a little longer. And again, this is an out-of-state firm that's trying to come here and build what we've stated more than one time we would no longer support, and that is speculative buildings. And the reason behind that, and it's been called out partly in my post, is exactly what Amanda brought up in her presentation. The speculative buildings and what's been proposed here from everything I've been able to read thus far is another warehousing type business. And we know from all of the ones that we currently have in the business park and those that are in process right now, that these jobs do not pay anywhere near $25 an hour, which is the minimum you need in order to live in this city. They are also jobs, and that's exactly what they are. They're jobs. They're not careers. Warehousing, as we've seen, is something that we go in. It's a starter job where, but I wouldn't expect them to build a career there. And we've talked about this for those of you on the council that have been on here as long as I've been coming before you for over 5 years, where we were trying to change direction and make Greenwood more of a place for careers so that we could anchor our children and our grandchildren here instead of having continual bleed where they have to go to other cities and states to support what they find in education. Again, even if they create 100 jobs out there, they're not going to pay anywhere near a wage where people can live here in the city with what they've proposed, again, on what they presented the first time before the council. And we're also running counter to what Aspire Johnson County had put forth before the council, before the city, and before the county as the vision of Johnson County, where we shifted and we are changing direction, where we're trying to draw more advanced manufacturing. We're trying to draw industry that uses technology such as artificial intelligence, and trying to build career type positions for our children and our grandchildren out in this area. We don't have a whole lot of land left to develop into industry. And I believe that this is not necessarily a bad use of the property, but I think we could find a better use of the property. With that in mind, you all know my heart. I've been before you, like I said, for over 5 years speaking about things like this. And I would just ask that you give consideration to just those few points that I brought before you, as well as what Amanda brought before you regarding the homelessness that is here in Johnson County, not being able to make a livable wage to live here in Greenwood or in the county for that matter. So even to live down near Edinburgh, you're going to have to make somewhere around close to $20 to $25 an hour. We can't support this. So we're not gaining friends, we're not gaining neighbors, we're gaining employees from other cities that are going to spend a minimal amount here. And again, we're just creating a job and not a career. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Anyone else wishing to speak concerning an item on the agenda? I failed to mention it with Randy, but I'm sure he's aware that there is a 5-minute time limit. So if you wish to speak, please speak up, state your name and address for the record. All right, I don't hear anybody. So moving on to ordinances and resolutions, Mr. Hopper.
Make a motion to move ordinance 2113 and resolution 2109 to where we are now.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to move ordinance 2113 and resolution 2109 to their place on the agenda where we are right now. So I believe that is because of the nature of it and the people who are here to present. We get them on and off as quickly as possible. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Seeing none, then roll call on the motion to move ordinance 2113 and resolution 2109 to the front of the agenda.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Bill,
Aye.
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Middleton,
Aye.
and Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0. So we are at new business introduction, ordinance 2113.
An ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Greenwood, Johnson County, Indiana, authorizing the issuance of one or more series of its City of Greenwood, Indiana Economic Development Revenue Bonds of 2021, 523 South Madison Project, and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto, the safeguarding of the interest of the owners of such revenue bonds and other matters connected therewith, and repealing ordinances inconsistent herewith, sponsored by Hill, Hopper, Dine, Campbell, Gibson, Lexi, and Williams.
I believe resolution 2109 goes with that, so we'll introduce that at the present.
A resolution authorizing the issuance of City of Greenwood, Indiana Redevelopment District Tax Increment Revenue Bonds of 2021-523 South Madison Project for the purpose of providing funds to be applied for certain project costs and incidental expenses in connection therewith, and paying the cost and expenses arising from the issuance of such bonds, sponsored by Hill, Hopper, Dine, Campbell, Gibson, Lexi, and Williams.
And we do have people here tonight to present on behalf of this, so we'll turn it over to the mayor at this point.
Thank you, Mr. President and councilors. Appreciate you moving us forward for us tonight as we have quite a team put together to discuss this. As you know, the 523 South Madison Avenue project's been something that we've been working on since 2016 when we were approached by the Greenwood school system to purchase the former middle school. I've got to tell you that this is probably the most exciting project that we will do in the history of this council and in the history of the city of Greenwood from now. We have been working on this tirelessly for many years. It's exciting to see how it's come together. I know it's brought up some questions that I'd like to address quickly before we go in front of the team. But I just want to say that this is just something that's going to be great for the city of Greenwood. As we were able to purchase that 19 acres from the Greenwood Middle School, or the Greenwood School Corporation, and Dr. DeConnick is online if he'd like to address the council when I get done. This is something that's really exciting for the city, that's going to bring a lot of new residents into the city. It's going to bring a lot of new assessed valuation into the city. It's going to bring the assessed valuation of the neighborhoods up quite a bit. And Mr. Stone and Mr. Sodom are here to talk about that. But a couple questions have been raised that I'd like to address quickly, and I know that Adam and Chuck will bring that up more. There's been concern raised in the public about the amount of traffic that this will bring with the number of residents that we're looking at bringing into the city. But I want to assure every council member that we hired one of the best traffic study firms, A&F Engineering, to come in and do a traffic study. They did a traffic study about what would happen if we added this number of traffic to the downtown area. And the way that we are currently building the roads and the way that some of the roads are currently built will sufficiently suffice for all of the traffic that we're looking at bringing in even more. So that has been taken care of. There's been a question about public safety. Residences like this do not bring in a lot of the issues that we have. These are higher end housing. They're market rate and above housing where statistically, we've talked with the police chief, those residences don't bring a lot of problem to the city. They don't bring a lot of crime to the city. Instead, they bring the exact opposite. They bring a lot of complacency into the area. But there are also people who are going to invest in our community, who are going to be a part of our community, who want to live, eat, and work and play in our downtown area, and we want to grow that downtown area. And the same goes for our fire and EMS. Questions been raised, and I will be the first to admit as your mayor, yes, our police department and our fire department are both understaffed. And you counselors have been very generous over the last 10 years that I've been in office to increase the number of law enforcement and firefighters in our city, and we will continue to do so as we're able to. The deputy mayor and I are meeting later this week to discuss how the current situation is with the finances. They look better than we expected. So we might be coming to you in a couple months and asking for some more increases. And that is only because we know we have those needs, but we also have the means to take care of those needs. So we want to address those issues right off the bat and let you know we do consider those, we think about those, and we want to make sure that those things are right for the city, that what we're bringing into the city, we always want to make sure that we're making the right decisions and that you, as the council, have the final say-so and support the administration in what we're doing and how we're bringing it in. Before I ask Dr. DeConnick to speak, I would like to speak about the project team that we put together. We start off with our corporation counsel, Sam Hodson. Sam's been with us. He's actually an attorney with Taft Law Firm and works for them full-time. He works on a basis with us as corporation counsel. Our city controller, Greg Wright, has done a lot of work with this, along with Adam Stone, who's our consultant for finances on the RDC. Kevin Steinmetz, who I will publicly admit is my wonk. He's a brilliant young man who does a lot of studying and brings me into reality a lot, and I really appreciate his thoughts. The city planner, Dale Davis, has had a lot of input into this as well. Redevelopment Commission President Kevin Hoover, along with Ezra Hill, City Council member, has also been involved in almost every meeting we've had to deal with the 523 project. And they're strongly supportive of this. And Chuck Sagan, Chuck's title is owner representative consultant, but he's more like one of the best voices that we've had for the city of Greenwood in my history of being here. And I deeply appreciate Chuck and his wisdom and knowledge that he's brought with him throughout the many years of serving the city of Indianapolis, owning his own corporations and doing quite a few other things in asset management. Thanks, Molly. And our bond consultant is Zach Kless and Jennifer Hudson with Lemon Whitty Group. And with that, Dr. Knight can unmute himself. I believe he has a few comments he'd like to make.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Common Council members as well. It's great to join you tonight. I, first of all, on behalf of the school district, am so excited for this project. As the mayor mentioned, it seems like it's been a lot less than 6 years ago, but remember 6 years ago, us talking about this partnership and possibility that as we build a new middle school, that we could also help have an impact on our city. So we're excited that this project is moving along. Along with that, I also have had a couple of conversations with the mayor and a couple of city representatives just asking me my thoughts and opinions on the impact of the project on our school system as a whole. And so I wanted to take just a couple minutes to kind of give a perspective on what our school district's concerns, or not concerns, but that our thoughts would be that could become concerns if they came to fruition. But one of the questions that's been asked of me is from a capacity standpoint, are we able to handle any additional students that would come into our school district? And first, I think many of you know that area right now is designated to be an Isom Elementary attendance area. And so right now, we could handle about, and not knowing what the projections are for school-age children, I just wanted to give the council a perspective on where our capacities could be, and then what options we would have to help deal with numbers if they were to be larger. But right now, we could, if you said that we needed to have 50 or 60 more students at Isom tomorrow, we certainly could find room for 50 or 60 more students at Isom. So we have some room now, and down the road, if once we would hit that limit, we would probably then look to, we also have about 20 to 40 students who are out of district, who live outside of our school boundaries, out of our Greenwood school boundaries that we allow to attend Isom. And at that point, we would probably close off the ability to have out of district transfer students into Isom. We obviously would let students currently going there to remain going there. But if we got to a capacity level at that building, then we would be able to handle moving those students and to other buildings. So between limiting out of district transfers to that building and having them go someplace else, and just with the capacity we have now, I would say we've got 80 to 90, the ability to have 80 or 90 students in Isom now. If you said, hey, Kent, we need, that's how many we need. After that, we'd have to start looking at portables, probably portable classrooms. We also could look at asking students to voluntarily transfer to another building in the district, or down the road, we could look at redistricting. And I think all of you are aware in school systems, redistricting can be an interesting process to go about, but we could redistrict if needed. Or down the road, we could even add on to a couple existing elementary schools if we need the room in order to do that. Those would be our plan. That would be our plan of attack long term. But I want to say that we are very supportive of this project. Our biggest concern or just request of the city would be just to give us planning time, depending upon the amount of students that you believe would be entering into our district. As you all know, more students in a school district is a really, really good thing. So we want more students. We want more students to be a part of Greenwood. So we are very supportive of this, but I just wanted to give you a perspective about what our current capacities would be and also how we could work through that if those numbers crept over, say, 90 students or so, to how we could help accommodate more students moving into that area. All of those are possibilities that can happen. We can make those happen, but obviously you can imagine some of those might take a longer lead time than others. But beyond that, we are very, very happy and proud that we've been able to be part of this project. And
what
I
time
look
does the
forward
meeting
to that.
start? Does the meeting start?
And so I just want to give you that perspective, and obviously I can take any questions you have as well.
All right, any questions for Dr. DeConnick this time? All right, thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you, sir.
Mr. Campbell.
With that, I'd like to introduce Chuck Sagan and have him come up and address the meeting.
Did you say thank you or hey, Mr. Kimball? You said.
Sorry.
Is that a question for you, Mr. Hopper? I'm sorry.
I couldn't tell if Dr. DeConnick said, hey, Mr. Campbell, because he wanted to say something else, or
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, if you wouldn't mind very quickly, I just want to mention, this is really not to do with this, but I want to tell all of you in city government there, thank you. I think all of you know that I will be retiring here in about 2.5 months. And my time in this city and my time in working with really all of you in some capacity has been very rewarding for me. And I just appreciate the relationship that we have had as a school district and as a city government. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and I appreciate working with you, and you will be greatly missed.
Thank you.
Assuming you actually mean it this time.
There will be a resolution coming in front of the council that we're not going to allow Dr. DeConnick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Publicly, sir, I want to thank you for your years of service to the school system. You have been an amazing superintendent, wonderful to work with, and you will be greatly missed by all of us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. We appreciate your time this evening. I know all of you have heard sort of an abbreviated version of this, and I think given the time that we've spent currently, we're going to try to move through this relatively quickly. Adam and I will take most of this. First in front of you is the agenda, and we're going to talk about a quick review of sort of the site context and location, brief overview, sort of the metrics of the project, the developer selection process, which really ought to be titled selecting a partner for this. Developer bio and experience, which our development team has representatives that are on this evening. They're going to join us for that. You've met them previously via the same program here in Zoom. We're going to talk about their concept images that they've got, the construction timeline that I'm going to take. Adam is going to go through the overall project agreement and the summary, and we'll have some conclusions, a recommendation and a request for the vote for you. And we also have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers and responses from our end. But somebody said there was a basketball game later this evening, and so we're going to try to move along. So the first slide is site context. All of you know where the site is. We've been talking about it, as the mayor said, since 2016. The top right-hand side is the air photo of the school building that Dr. DeConnick spoke about, and the land transaction between the city and the school corporation. The site context map demonstrates the amount of acreage that this is, which is 19 acres basically in the heart of Greenwood, but surrounded by a number of public investments, and we'll talk a little bit about those. And then the bottom portion of it is a rendering of the current field house situation, which is under construction, and Adam's going to just roll through real quickly an overview, a slide, if you will, the drone that Molly Lott actually took not very long ago of the site under construction. More progress has actually been made, but it is interesting to take a look at this and really understand the context in which this site sits in Greenwood and as it looks directly south into the area of the roundabout. So in terms of the recap of the project and the development being discussed, as we look at this, we're talking about a project that's $83.5 million total investment. It's been in planning in one fashion or another since about 2013. It will have, when fully assessed, about $1 million of annual tax revenues, and $200,000 of that will be base real estate taxes that will go to the other entities, police and fire and others. And it will pay about $20 million. That's the current estimate over the next 25 years. This is a $68 million investment from the developer partner in this. And we believe that the project, after careful consideration and discussion with a number of experts in this, will have nominal tax impact to the existing taxpayers that are here. And it should continue to improve nearby property values. If you've done any looking at all or studied your own valuations in your properties here, you'll see the increase that has been going on recently, especially in the last 3 years. We expect that to continue, perhaps not at the rate that it is. We also believe this will have a sort of zero general fund balance impact. All of the financing that Adam will talk about really rests outside that platform. And it's a 2.5-year construction timeline. So as the mayor was talking about the issues with police and fire and other issues, we've got 2.5 years that if there are things that we need to deal with that are in addition to the things that have been thought about now, we do have a window of opportunity here to work our way through that. And the plan that we have already calls for some additional work to be done in the immediate area and work with the county on things like the addition to the Smith Valley Road Bridge that is just south of here. And very briefly, in the right-hand side of the slide, this is an image that a lot of communities use in looking at the keys for a successful project. And it's more like a target as you take a look at it, but those items, the market feasibility and financial feasibility, and whether it fits right on the site and whether it meets community goals, all of those things we have kept an eye on as we have brought this project to fruition and made it available for developers to consider and bringing in a partner. And to that end, as we've discussed before, the master plan implementation to try to bring the middle school site online involves something that's been going on for a substantial number of years. And this really demonstrates the commitment to invest in downtown Greenwood and looks at the progress that's been taking place since basically 2016. So the amphitheater park that was done in 2017, Main and Meridian, which was a small project that has helped traffic movement in that immediate area, the Smith Valley Road roundabout, the North Madison Streetscape project, which phase 1 is done, phase 3 is underway, and there's a third phase that would be coming. And the Serena Way connection, which is now the northern boundary of the site that we're talking about, the new parking lot adjacent to the library, the new parking lot immediately adjacent to Our Lady of Greenwood, which is a partnership between the church and the city of Greenwood, and the old city park renovation, perhaps the most, I guess, favored of the improvements that have been made, most popular with the residents, especially the kids in Greenwood. And other things that we're still looking at ongoing will be the alley improvements downtown, and hopefully the Main and Madison streetscape projects, which we're still working on the final design and pricing for that. All of this said and indicated to demonstrate the investments that have been accomplished because of the redevelopment commission and the council's votes to allow us to move forward with those and your commitment to the downtown area. So moving on, the developer selection process, well, how did we find a partner for this? And somebody that could share the vision and that would make a major investment and a commitment on that. When I mentioned before, we're talking about things that went on since 2013, and really the creation of the tax increment district that really stretched out over toward the interstate was really the sort of platform for being able to start all of this. The investment that's out there in that district and other investments in this area has given us an opportunity to be able to think about investments in the downtown area. And the plan was developed in 2016 by Rundell Ernstberger. And as was mentioned earlier, the middle school was acquired in 2017 for about $1 million. And it took about another $1.5 million to get demolition and stabilization. But in that, we saved the best building that was left, which was the old gymnasium, now to be Greenwood Fieldhouse. In 2019, additional planning was done specifically to look for the developer and to put out a request for information and identify the goals that the Redevelopment Commission and Greenwood Community Development Corporation and the council for that matter had. And during 2019 and 2020, that RFI was put out. We received 5 developer responses. Interviews were conducted, and was mentioned at the previous meeting, and the mayor mentioned earlier, Councilor Hill was involved in all of the meetings with the intended participants, those that made submissions as we went through the interview process, and as well Kevin Hoover, who represented the Redevelopment Commission, but is also on the Board of Public Works. So we had good representation and a lot of input from folks. And that allowed us to be able to talk to those folks specifically be able to make commitments on behalf of the city. During that time, we also did a market feasibility analysis that was done by a group called SB Friedman Associates out of Chicago, and also did the traffic study that the mayor was talking about earlier. And so in January 31st, after the 5 responses, the boxes that are at the bottom demonstrate we went through the interview process in March and May, in June and August. We basically came to the conclusion, narrowing that group down to a couple, and finally got where the entire group voted basically on sort of the first ballot that we ought to see if we could work out an arrangement with a group that is Great Lakes Capital Corporation and CRG Corporation, and the principals is Chris Reed in that. And Chris Reed and Clay Sheets with those 2 groups are here with us today. I hope they've survived now and are still on the Zoom with us. They were going to very briefly go through their developer biography and experience, and then take us through quickly on the site plans and the images that they have for the project that's being proposed. So Clay and Chris, if you're there. Maybe we lost them.
Chuck, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Man, what an exciting day to be here at this point in the juncture. What you see in front of you is a package of projects that we have done that are public-private partnerships. I won't spend much time on those, but as you can see, vast experience, of which River Point is one that we are currently just about to wrap up in Elkhart, Indiana. That's a public-private partnership that we are doing with Great Lakes. And this would be project, I think, number 4 or 5, and getting ready to close in the next 30 days or 45 days in downtown Traverse City for, I think, our 4th or 5th. About CRG, I started this company in my garage in 1993, roughly 28 years ago, with 2 employees. Those 2 are still here today. But today we've grown to nearly 200 employees, and we operate in roughly 7 states every business day. We have a satellite office in Chicago where we've been there for almost 13 or 14 years. This, well, like I said, won't be our first project with GLC. We currently build, to give you a sense of size, about 1,000 units on an annualized basis. And we renovate or retrofit, redevelop, however you want to call it, between 3,000 and 4,000 units annually. Moving a little bit on to the architectural side, I think, man, you guys have selected a great team down there with Chuck, Kevin, and Adam. And I think we've listened closely. Hopefully we've listened to what everyone wants, what the input is from Greenwood, and come up with a design that will make everybody proud. We are investors. We are a 50-50 venture with Great Lakes Capital. And this is an investment on our behalf, on my family's behalf, for a long-term hold. We are so excited to be part of the downtown creation and can't wait to get this thing underway if you will give us your blessing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. I don't think Clay was gonna speak, but I did want to run through a couple of items here.
Chuck, I joined you if you want me to run through that quickly.
I thought we'd lost you. Go right ahead, Clay.
No, thank you, everyone. My name is Clay Sheets. I'm a principal with Great Lakes Capital. We are a South Bend-based company that's been around since 2005. We also have 2 satellite offices, one in Indianapolis where I'm domiciled. I'm an Indy native, born and raised, was actually born in Coleman Hospital, downtown Indianapolis. My mom was a teacher at Cathedral High School for a long, long time. We also have an office in Fort Wayne. And my Fort Wayne partner, Dave Arnold, and I are the key leads on behalf of Great Lakes. You know, we specialize in real estate development. As you can see, I won't walk through each of the 6 sample projects before you, but as you can see on this slide, that the short of it is DLC and this particular project, in terms of its scale, scope, mixed use nature, and public-private partnership nature, are kind of right in the wheelhouse for what we do every day. So we're humbled to have been selected by the city. And as Chris well said, we have done a lot of projects with Chris. In addition to the 4 or 5 that he mentioned, there's another 3 or 4 in the hopper. So we've got a number of things to have done together. Not our first rodeo. And, you know, as Chuck described, the balance of the folks that you know, competed for this opportunity, it's obviously from a very well-qualified group that we have been selected, and we're humbled by that and happy to be a part of it, and hope that you guys support us. And as Chris said, give us your blessing to proceed with this, because we want to be a big part of it. And hopefully be there at the finish line to deliver on a project that I think is, as the Mayor Myers said, is going to be super instrumental for the community of Greenwood. So happy to be a part of it. Chuck, I'll turn it back to you unless you want us to turn our attention just to a quick site plan overview.
Yeah, why don't you do that real quick, Clay?
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Chuck. So as you can see here, as you all well know, the site is bound to the north. To the north is to the right on your slide, as you know. Serena, and then Meridian and Smith Valley to the south. As you see before you, this whole mixed-use project surrounds the field house. There are 7 buildings in total, buildings A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, plus the parking garage, which is in the south middle, immediately due south to the bottom of the screen of building E. Of those 7 buildings, excluding the garage, of course, that in total represents about 357 units of housing. Of that housing stock, all but 60, or I should say the mix of 297 are for rent. The for rent units are housed in buildings B, E, F, and G. And then the for sale product are the townhomes, buildings noted as building C and D. It's a pod of 8 in buildings, or building C, and then 10 currently in building D. Truthfully, not to get you in the weeds, but we do envision actually being able to bring more units to these 2 sites, because we had pretty large units, and we want to frankly deliver a product that is, frankly, goes back a little bit to what Amanda started the conversation off tonight with, which is, you know, very much a market rate product, but we think we can do kind of 1,500 to 2,000 square foot units that are 3-story. And we had currently, what you see before you, that 18 unit count townhome number really was predicated on a 2,500 unit per unit townhome. And that's pretty large. And we really want to be in that 325,000 to 425,000 price point. And in order to do that, we need to kind of scale it down to a unit of the size of 1,500 to 2,000, as I mentioned, and those will be 3-story. With the exception of buildings C, D, and B, all 3 of those are 3-story. Everything else you see, buildings A, E, F, and G, are all 4-story. We'll get to the architectural renderings here in a moment. The only other highlights I want to mention now in terms of the site plan are a lot of our amenities will be housed primarily in building E. So that'll be the common area amenities. You can see a pool there and a courtyard all in the center that every homeowner or renter will have access to those amenities. There'll be a fitness center, obviously quite complementary to the field house, not nearly on the same scale and scope as the field house, but something that folks will be able to use and enjoy. In addition to that, we've got in excess of 18,000 square feet of ground floor retail and restaurant space. Those are comprised in the north end of building B, 1 unit there. We've got on the hard corners, kind of the northwest and the southwest corners of building E. Those will be commercial. In addition to that, we've got additional square footage for commercial in buildings F and G. We are exploring the possibility of bringing additional commercial square footage into building G. And so may shift up that mix a little bit, but by and large, in terms of our commitment to delivering 18,000 square feet in their general locations, it's well represented here. And the final highlight is the parking structure is plus or minus 353 units in a 4-story parking garage. In total, you can see highlighted at the top of the page, there's roughly 1,952, I guess, spaces in total, including all on-site parking, the public realm along Meridian and Madison, as well as the interior streets that run east-west on Orchard and Church Streets, and then certainly what's surrounding the field house, the other buildings, and then inside the parking garage itself. And with that, I'll either, I guess, Chuck, turn it back to you or maybe Chris to talk about the architectural renderings and construction.
Chris, take 1 minute and take us through these slides.
Thanks, Clay. You see, the biggest thing I think that our teams work together with, Chuck and Kevin, was trying to create an extension of what the existing structures are downtown. So we wanted a historic look that yet kind of had an old town feel that would not be something that's out of style. We wanted a more timeless facade and architectural. And I think that's where a lot of these facades, what you see, came from. Chuck, I don't know if you're showing the parking garage yet, but we've also come up with a couple facades that I think would be very beneficial to the parking structure that you don't really see much of the parking areas. As you can see, the very different facade on those garages, unlike you would see in a normal parking garage. Our goal was to hide, not be able to see all the parking spaces from that standpoint.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions, Chuck?
No, I think we'll move along, but thanks, Chris, and thanks, Clay, for joining us this evening. We're going to talk briefly about the construction timeline. As was presented before, of course, all of this relies for its commencement date on a couple of things that Adam's going to be talking about, but we would be able to start this summer if possible, if the financing came together and the bond situation came together. And this would start first with the largest building, which is in the middle in the green in the parking garage, followed by F and G, which would be down by Smith Valley Road, and then it would sort of shift to the northern portion of the site. We're finishing up the field house now. The skin is going on that as of a couple of days ago. So later in the summer, that project would be complete. We have a little bit of coordination to do, but these guys are what we turn over to them and moving forward. So this is the schedule sort of building by building. As we've shown you before, if you like it better in sort of a Gantt format, this is what the timeline would look like. There's a lot of moving parts relative to this, but this development team is experienced in having larger projects come together. There's going to be a lot of effort to do this, but assuming we can get a July 1 construction start, this is what our schedule would look like. So at this point, turn this over to Adam and let him talk about the project agreement and where we are economically.
Sure. Thank you, Chuck. So just wanted to briefly start at a somewhat of a high level, going back to the site plan, but in this case, looking at less from the developer's perspective and more from the city public realm perspective. So what I'd first like to draw your attention to is the green and kind of yellow colored legend there. So one of the major public components of this partnership is the streetscapes that are projected from Serena Way extension down to Smith Valley Roundabout on the Madison Avenue side, and then the section on Meridian Avenue through to Smith Valley as well. So those are full street improvement, sidewalks, street parking, etc. And then what we tried to illustrate here in the dashed blue lines is everything that would be retained in the public ownership asset of the city as a result of this project. So first, this is orientated where north is on the right here. But essentially, you'll see the two roadway sections coming through. Those are yet to be named. We have indicative names for them at this point, but they're connector roads. They're access roads that would serve connection throughput through Meridian and Madison Avenue. Those will be built by the developer, transferred to the ownership of the city. Looking immediately east of Building E is the parking garage that Clay mentioned. It's a 3-story, 358 space garage that would be publicly owned and controlled, with the developer signing up an agreement to have a usage agreement to cover their operating costs and capital reserve based on their pro rata usage. And then they mentioned earlier, really the park anchor is the new field house. And you'll see that there towards the northern section of the project, where you see both the new roundabout that comes in to drop off at the field house, as well as the parking lot for the field house. And then at the very north middle of the site, just south of Serena Way, is the field house plaza. That's something that is going to be a very important piece for the Greenwood Parks and Recreation department, as well, as far as programming, venue space, those types of things. So the total development area is 19 acres, of which in the project agreement, about 30% or 6 acres of that would actually be not passed through or sold to the developer. That would actually be carved out, subplatted for the ownership of the city long term, with that being for right of way for the sidewalks, the 2 new roadways that come through, as well as the ownership of the garage structure, field house, parking lots, those types of things. So looking at that a little bit in a different fashion, less visually and more key terms in the agreement. So as you mentioned, as the developers mentioned, it's a joint venture between Great Lakes Capital and CRG, and the project agreement stipulates various different binding performance milestones with this contractor. So there's milestones relative to the condo development. There's milestones based on construction start, assessed values, bond parameters, all of those items. Looking at the land sale, the land, it would be conveyed through the Greenwood Community Development Corporation, and it would be set up in essentially two closings. So phase 1 is simply said as everything but the land that would be parceled under Building A, which is intended to be the for sale multi-story condo flats. So essentially everything you saw on the site plan but for Building A would be phase 1. That would be the first close. That would be a continuous construction cycle over the next 2.5 years. Phase 2 is then the land sale that would serve building A. Okay. Now, the logical question there is why? And the reason is the commercial loan that the developer would need to secure for the condo complex has different pre-sale requirements than the for rent and office component. They have to essentially achieve over a 50% pre-sale in order to be able to secure and close that financing. Okay, I can tell you we have already had quite a bit of interest. I'm aware of one individual that actually went as far as going on the city's information portal and submitting in a request. So all of those we are trying to route to the developer and try to help make sure that all of anyone that is interested in relocating down here specifically for one of the for sale condo complexes, that we make those connections. So the asterisks from the financial side, and one of the things that I would want to make sure to stress is that this is a large 19-acre development. One of the benefits of this agreement is that you have the same contractor, the same developer taking down all the different buildings. And the entire site was designed and materials were picked out in conjunction with that same vision. So, but for the pre-sale requirements of the condos, essentially everything else is a commitment in this agreement to be constructed by the developer. Looking at the developer requirements specifically, so as mentioned, it's 297 market rental units, at least 18,000 square feet of retail office space on those key corners, and then 60 for sale housing units, which is allocated between 18 townhomes and approximately 42 condo flats. The parking garage structure has approximately 358 gross spaces. The 3-story garage is covered. As I'm sure you've seen in other communities, parking, especially parking for these large mixed-use items, is a key component in these developments. Parking can be very expensive, and it becomes obviously a long-term operating question. One of the discussions we had early with this developer group was wanting to understand who was going to own that, and likely more importantly, who was going to maintain that. And the city's officials have elected that long-term they want control of that asset. In this agreement, one of the benefits from a financial standpoint is that with the mixed use there, they're ramping into 278 paid spaces. So on an annual basis, just like some of the private uses of this building, each year those operating expenses are calculated, and then on a pro rata basis, on a per space basis, are essentially billed out to the apartment users. In addition, they've also in the agreement agreed to a $200 per year capital reserve so that that garage can be secure, can be updated, and have the best technology available. As mentioned, it is a public-private partnership. So defining the public realm of that is really the key tenants are the parking garage, the street and stormwater improvements that are required in part of this for the Madison and Meridian sections, as well as the two access roads that would work east-west through the site. The financial participation in this proposed project, from the city's perspective, there would be a direct benefit to the developer of approximately $4.3 million. That's for utilities, site work, grading, and drainage work. That's really kind of site-wide, but is essentially allocated to their developer parcels. Other than that, the developer would be purchasing, if they closed both phases, the land from the city for $1 million, which would be credited from that. And also the city would be financing the public realm improvements such as the garage and streetscape improvements from the two bonds that you have before you tonight. So the first is a central TIF bond. As Chuck mentioned earlier, this property resides in the central expansion TIF area, or TIF allocation area. So its main purpose and charter, one of the key tenets of its economic development plan, was the revitalization of downtown, specifically this area, this parcel. And function of that would be those general central TIF revenues would be pledged for the repayment of the garage, repayment of the street improvements, et cetera. That's one of the ordinances you have before you tonight. The second way this would be financed is through the use of what's called a economic development or TIF bond. These are sometimes referred to as a developer purchase or developer backed bond. They don't operate in a traditional sense that at closing you don't necessarily transfer funds. It's essentially a tax rebate structure that's amortized over the life of a TIF district to effectively rebate the taxes on the new assessment that comes due the property. And then the last item I have here is obviously as if this all gets approved per the normal reading process, the anticipated construction start is July of this summer. So looking a little bit more closely at the detail of the various breakdown of the cost estimates. So in aggregate between both the private and public realm, it's estimated to be $83.5 million total project cost. The developer share is that first column in to the right. So the developer share would be approximately $68 million of the total, with the balance coming either from the direct financial participation of the city at $4.3 million or $11 million in the public infrastructure. Largest components there again are the parking garage, the street improvements, the access roads, et cetera. So one of the questions that we've gotten throughout these presentations and throughout these sessions is, impact on nearby properties, impact on taxpayers, et cetera. And it's a good question. So it's one that we've looked at and we've updated essentially monthly as we've gone through this progress of late. And what we wanted to share tonight was really 3 snapshots, all of kind of looking at the same general local area or local economy, specifically from an assessed value and tax environment standpoint. So I would encourage you to first look at the chart on the upper left. That's looking at the central allocation TIF area. So that's the TIF that would be essentially being used. That's the revenue that's being used to be the repayment source of the central TIF bonds for the public realm aspect. It has really grown significantly over the last few years, both in the amount of captured assessed value as well as the base assessed value. And this project is estimated to be at full completion. Just the for rental aspect is looking at somewhere between $35 and $47 million in new commercial assessed value. In addition to that, there's estimated to be about $20 million of new for sale residential assessed values as well. So when we bring those, as you estimate those being constructed and assessed and ultimately brought on the tax rolls, we projected it at essentially at inflation. We projected it at about a 3% growth rate through the next 25 years. And you can see the impact both on the central TIF's financial health as well as the base taxpayers as well. And that's a key component with regards to this project. Unlike a lot of the other redevelopment projects, this has a significant day one for sale tax-based impact. There's $20 million that once constructed would never be TIF'd, it's not going to be captured, and is available for the city, the county, the school, the library, all to have new immediate for sale assessed values that they can tax to provide their services. Looking to the top right, that's using Zillow's data portal. So this is looking at the 46142 zip code. This was pulled through, I believe, February's data. And this is the average household property value according to Zillow.com over the through February. And you can see over the last several years, it's continued to track up. Through the end of February, it was just under 240,000, and they have a forward estimate projected to go up just under 8% for the current year. So when we look at so the top left is really commercial and industrial AVs. The top right chart is more residential in this area. And so when you look at that, both assessed values are generally increasing. And then the chart that's in the bottom middle, that's the tax rate. So for real and personal property taxes, they are a function of an individual's assessed value, any bit of deductions they have on their property, and then their tax rate for their taxing district. So the red in this case is the school, the county, the special districts, those types of things. And then the blue is the city of Greenwood civil rate over the last few years. And I know that's somewhat small to see, but the far right column in this case is the current 2021 rate. So what I wanted to point out here is that the actual total tax rate that's used on any given property for billing purposes has actually been steadily going down year over year, both in the city as well as all of the other taxing districts within this area. And that's predominantly because the assessed values have been going up at a higher rate than the state allows these individual units of government to grow their budget. So in the state of Indiana, there's a growth quotient, there's a growth control with levies. So if assessed values are growing at 6, 7, 8%, but you can only grow your levy budget by 2 or 3%, what falls is the tax rate. So back to the original question, what's the local impact? Well, in the short term, there's going to be the construction cycle and those types of things. But ultimately, as the project gets built, phased in, and fully assessed, our best estimates right now is it's going to be more of the same. It's going to add additional assessed value both to the base immediately and to the commercial aspect over time. So one of the ordinances that you have tonight is the developer back bond. This is the only second time in recent past that Greenwood has adopted one of these, with the Verge project being the other. And effectively what these are is they're sometimes referred to as a cashless bond. They're really a bond amortization in structure. And they essentially function as a rebate mechanism on taxes that are created from the new project and then rebated back through to the project. So starting with the blue, that's the total tax revenue for the real estate new assessed value that's expected to come into the project, both in the for sale and for rent, assuming the initial assessed values, construction timeline, and then a 3% growth rate over time. The next would be that red and orange. So the red would be the expected percent of that's coming in from the for rent and commercial and retail that would ultimately then be sized for the bond payment that would effectively provide a one-to-one rebate back to the developer. Okay. So 2 points of note. First, the city currently owns that land. There is a zero-based value. There's no taxes currently being paid on any of that. So as a result of this project, there's up to $67 million of new assessed value that would come in. That's a significant assessed value in the city of Greenwood. To put that in perspective, that is quite higher than the Greenwood Park Mall, which is what most individuals think of if they don't live and think about Greenwood. And it's currently Greenwood's #1 taxpayer and has been that way for several years. So if that helps everyone kind of have an understanding of the magnitude of the investment. So $1 million total tax impact per year. The second thing would be, again, that difference between the top of the blue line and then the kind of top of the red or the orange. That's the difference in tax revenue that effectively day one, as soon as those are constructed and then the ownership is transferred to the subsequent homeowner. That's all the tax revenue per year that would be immediately available to the local area for schools, parks, libraries, etc. So as far as the next steps, so tonight you have the introduction of the two different developer bonds. We have Zach and Jennifer on to discuss any questions that you have there. And then over to the right, you can see our various different milestones as we work through the various different public process. So tonight is the first meeting at council, but I know that in all your cases, this isn't necessarily the first time you've seen this information. It was unanimously approved at the Redevelopment Commission, as well as unanimously approved at the Economic Development Commission as well.
So we're at the end. So our conclusions and recommendations for you to consider this evening that I think this project meets the goals of the master plan that were identified. It's a quality reuse of property that hasn't been on the tax rolls, as Adam indicated. It leverages the public participation in this thing for a good return. And it's a solid investment for the city, and it's a reasonable return, but not too great a one for the developers in this case. We agree on significant terms for a project agreement, but there are still risks that are in the market, execution side of financing, that we will hurdle at this point. And we are recommending approval of the Commons Council, both of these ordinances that we will need to move forward, and would request any questions that you might have for us or for the other team members, as Adam said, that are on the phone from TAP Law or from London Living. Thank you for your consideration.
Great. Thank you very much. That was very thorough and very informative. Any questions from the council for them at this time? Mr. Dine.
I want to make sure that I'm clear. The parking spaces in the parking garage, are they assigned or are they first come, first served?
So at this point, of the 358 total, 297 or so are identified for the apartment project. They have the right to get all of those as they go through their leasing. The balance of those are for the city to use. We think that those are going to be principally for what goes on at the field house, could be other events. But what we really see happening in this partnership is that as we move through the question of events and other things like that downtown, these parking garages that have been done at other locations are pretty successful in being able to double up uses. So when people are gone to work during the day, they're available for other sorts of things. And so that is the process we have, is the ability to work with the developer to be able to sort of refine that process. But essentially 80 guaranteed spaces, more than that to the extent that we can get it, but with the developer's participation to make sure that the economics are there.
Okay, I guess my next question, again, coming from our background, I come home 4 hours early for work or somebody in my parking spot. Who handles that complaint?
Yeah, that'll be part of the sort of management program. It's likely that we will use a manager to do this, much like Dennison or the other groups do. There's a lot of electronic things too that also deal with that don't let more people in than what's supposed to be. But by and large, if you have a rented parking space, because you're in the apartment unit, yours is going to be available. Somebody may park in a different space the next day.
The city owns the building, but they're not going to manage it. They're not, and this is what I need to find out.
Yeah.
They're not going to manage it, and they're not going to be involved in collecting money or anything else. A third entity, this money's not coming into the city where they have to have other employees handle the money.
No, the money will be coming in to
Eventually,
the
yeah,
city
or however.
ultimately to be able to do that. But based on our understanding of how most of these go, and anything that I've ever been involved in, there is a third-party manager that is involved in that. Somebody that is experienced in dealing with these sorts of things to maximize the revenue, minimize the issues that we've got, and that their fees are actually allocated as part of the annual operating expenses that's involved in this. And so that's what we intend to do. We think Greenwood ultimately, not now, but 5 years from now, will probably have a parking group, a parking committee that will be together to consider this and other kinds of things. We see more public parking that has a revenue base in it downtown.
Okay, another question. The city is not going to be involved in leasing, renting, selling condos, storefronts, or anything. A management company or the developers handling that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to make sure we were still talking the same way, because a couple of things have changed since we last talked about this. But if the city's not involved in real estate and not involved in collecting parking funds, then great.
Yeah, we will not be involved in that. What we are doing is relaying all of the inquiries, all the folks that we've kept on the list for the better part of 3 years now that are interested in that. We're passing those along and we'll be involved in that, but they are handling all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions.
Right, any other questions at this time?
I have a quick one, and I might have missed it. When was the parking study done?
Parking study was done, if you're talking about the A&F one that was done, which was the traffic study that we were talking about, that was done in 2016 and then updated basically about 90 days ago. We asked them when we got close on this project and said, here's the project that we have. We asked them again through A&F to go back, research again, and make a determination as to this specific plan, whether it was going to meet the same requirements and they would be in the same position. They evaluated that and they said, because they had evaluated it originally based on more units going on the site, they felt comfortable that their outlining requirements and their recommendations would stand up the same as it did in prior years.
All right, thank you. Any other questions at this time? I just want to say that the mayor mentioned that this was an historical project in a sense, and that the magnitude of it and important for the city. I've been on a council about the same length of time that he's been mayor, and prior to being on the council, I would hear about the old community center and the work that went into that, and the only complaint I ever heard was that it was not big enough. While I've been on the council and on the RDC, we built the aquatic center, Freedom Springs, and I remember there being, my first RDC meeting lasted 5.5 hours, and I remember there being a lot of opposition and a lot of concern about that project, its location, I mean, everything, and yet we moved forward with that, and it has exceeded all of our expectations. It has done really well. Again, the only real complaint I've heard is it's not big enough. This project is drastically different. Both those projects were done by the city alone. This project is truly a private public partnership, and the work that has gone into this and the time and effort, the years, the expertise that has gone into this is amazing. And while I know we're being asked to pass a couple large bonds, that's just a percentage, a smaller percentage of what the developers are putting in of their own money and putting into this. So I'm extremely impressed. I've seen the presentation, at least different parts of it at times. Continue to be impressed with the work and the expertise that's been put into this, and the pictures and renditions I've seen. I'm really excited about this project and look forward to seeing it construction start and eventually completed. So, any other comments from the council? If not, then we will return to our, thank you, gentlemen. You're welcome to stay.
Please.
Any questions from the council about the bonds or anything? I know we have people here to answer that. All right. And moving on to ordinances and resolutions, notice of intent to consider ordinance number 2112.
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map adopted by reference and Unified Development Ordinance number 2029, proposed rezoning of approximately 46.11 acres located on the east side of Graham Road, CA Ventures Industrial Property, sponsored by Dine.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dine, a second? Second, Mr. Hopper. Anybody here want to talk about that?
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, this is Eric Prime. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me just very quickly, I know we've got a packed agenda tonight and I want to be sensitive to that, but if I could share my screen real quick. Whoops. That one. There, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All right. So for the record, Eric Prime, Van Valer Law Firm, representing CA Industrial, the petitioner and developer of this proposed project. Your owners of the parcel are the McColgan and Genrich families. We have approximately 46 acres on Graham Road, south of County Line. You can see the yellow and the light blue outlined areas. Those are the parcels. Just to the south of us is the Opus facility and the fire station, just to orient you as to where we are here. This is what the proposed buildings would look like. We're discussing two buildings. The main entrance to the facility would line up with existing roads to the west. You've got industrial to the south and to the west. To the north is the new interstate commerce area and the proposed Cummins area. And immediately north of this project is multifamily and some commercial zoning. And as you move on up to County Line Road, I believe there's a Casey's General Store proposed for that corner directly to the north of us. So this would be two buildings, speculative, one larger, more kind of typical for the type of uses that have been put into that area recently. The smaller building to the south would be more in line with the value add light manufacturing type of a facility with more employees and more office space. There's a different view of the facility. What I want to call to your attention very quickly is the setbacks and the buffering. Obviously, Graham Road has been considered to be, for years, the area where you want this type of development to occur. This is an infill project that fills in an area that has yet to be developed, but probably brings us up to a good stopping point with the multifamily, smaller commercial to the north of us. The code requires your new code. The new UDO requires rear yard and side yard setbacks at 40 feet. We are going to adhere to that on the on the east property line, where we back up to multifamily and some single family. There will be a berm and 6-foot privacy fence, as well as landscaping. We've also committed on the north property line to do the same. And I'll show you a rendering of that in just a second. But the one thing I wanted to point out from this slide is that the code only requires a 15-foot front yard setback off of Graham Road. We are providing a 45-foot buffer off of Graham, so that this project will be very nicely integrated into that area. This is just kind of artist renderings, concepts of what the buildings may look like. And then get to the buffer real quick. This will be on the east property line and then on the north property line to separate this from the other uses that are adjacent. The statutory criteria we went through at the public hearing with the Plan Commission. Staff has recommended an approval of this project with some fairly substantial requested criteria to be met, which we've agreed to do. The Plan Commission heard this at the public hearing and forwarded it to you with a recommendation of approval on a unanimous basis. And so we think everything's lined up very well in terms of meeting the statutory criteria, and that this should be a really good project to help finish out the Graham Road corridor. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
All right, thank you, Eric. Any questions for Mr. Prime at this time? All right. Hearing none, any further discussion on the council? All right, then roll call, ordinance 2112.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Nay.
Pendleton,
Nay.
Williams,
Nay.
and Bates.
Nay.
Ordinance 2112 passes on a vote of 5-4. First reading, thank you, Mr. Prime. First reading, Resolution 2106.
A resolution amending Resolution Number 2006, a resolution declaring a certain area within the city of Greenwood an economic revitalization area and qualifying certain real property improvements for tax abatement, and setting the time and place for a public hearing. County Line Properties LLC, 1173 Airport Parkway LLC, Phase 2, sponsored by Campbell and Hopper.
All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Hopper. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine.
Make a motion to amend per Shawna's memo.
All right, we have a motion to amend per the memo we got today by Mr. Hopper. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Any discussion on the amendment? Did all of you receive that? I'm assuming you did, so any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing and then roll call on the amendment to Resolution 2106.
Dunn,
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill. Hill,
Sorry, aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Pendleton,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
and Campbell.
Aye. Resolution 2106 is amended on a vote of 9-0. I believe Mr. Huddleston is here.
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes. Would you like to talk about this?
I will briefly. I did a presentation on March 15th, but it's been a few weeks, so I'll just refresh the council's memory. In addition to the materials that were supplied to you, we also, with the help of Amanda, issued to you pictures of an existing building my clients have done that will look a lot like, very similar to what we're proposing here. If you recall, I'm Dustin Huddleston, attorney for the 117 Airport Parkway LLC. I'm an attorney in Franklin, Indiana. The entity is made up of two local businessmen, Jeff Smith, who's the owner and operator of Projects Plus, and Joel Fritz, who's the president and founder of CTC Commercial Teams Construction. If you recall, we were here a year ago. We had two phases and two separate resolutions. The first phase is being unmodified, and that was proposed and is scheduled to start construction. That's a 24,000 square foot facility, $1.8 million construction cost. The second phase, which is what the resolution is trying to amend, is simply enlarging the building from 24,000 square feet in the second phase to 33,800 square feet. After starting furthermore in the design process, it was discovered we could fit a bigger building in that space. So I would characterize this resolution, like I said, on March 15th, this is more bang for your buck because it increases the construction cost from 1.8 million to 2.5 million. And thus that'll increase a 39% increase and therefore increase the assessed value by the building assessment by 40%. And then the increase in the taxes collected from about 27%. So we're just asking that you modify what's already been approved in the second phase. And again, it will yield a higher amount of taxes. Lastly, these buildings are a little bit more unique than the buildings you've been seeing recently. They're smaller, more fit to different kind of businesses than what the larger ones are accustomed to. And I'd be happy to answer any question.
All right, any questions for Mr. Huddleston? All right, any discussion on the council? Hearing and then roll call, resolution 2106, first reading, as amended.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Middleton,
Nay.
Williams,
Aye.
Bates,
Nay.
Campbell,
Aye.
and Donnie.
Aye.
Resolution 2106 passes first reading 7-2 as amended. Resolution 2107.
A resolution declaring certain area within certain real property improvements for tax abatement and setting the time and place for a public hearing, GLA Properties, the City of Greenwood, and this doesn't look right. The City of Greenwood and Economic Revitalization Area qualifying LLC for building complex. That's what it says on your agenda, but the actual caption is a resolution declaring certain area within the City of Greenwood an economic revitalization area and qualifying certain real property improvements for tax abatement and setting the time and place for a public hearing, GLA Properties LLC for building complex. And it is sponsored by Campbell and Hopper.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Dine, second, Mr. Hopper. Anyone here want to talk about this?
I think they presented 2 weeks ago.
Sorry?
I think they presented 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they did. All right, any discussion on the council?
I'm sorry, what she read, wasn't that exactly what was on the agenda?
No, that was not.
No, there was a presentation made at our last meeting on this resolution, I believe.
The agenda is a
I
resolution.
would say there was. Hi, Alexis Souter here with PSM Location Advisors. Nothing has been changed since our presentation a few weeks ago, but just as a brief recap, this is a project for Scannell Properties. This is a project that would be inclusive of what we're planning on being 4 separate developments there along Allen Road, east of Collins Road. Again, total investment is a little over $51 million. We have proposed an alternate abatement schedule. If you'll remember, no years are being requested to have 100% abatement. Years 1 through 3 are at 80%, and then we taper off from there.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on the council? Any questions? All right, hearing none, then roll call. Resolution 2107, first reading.
Hill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Middleton,
Nay.
Williams,
Nay.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
and Gibson.
Aye.
Resolution 2107 passes first reading 7-2. Second reading, ordinance 2108.
An ordinance amending the Greenwood Fire Department merit system to remove requirement for lateral transfer application process, sponsored by Campbell and Gibson.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion on the council? Hearing none, then roll call, roll call, ordinance 2108, second reading.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Aye.
Middleton,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Gibson, and Hill.
Aye.
Resolution ordinance 2108 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 2111.
An ordinance amending the 2021 salary ordinance, Common Council Ordinance Number 20-31, to change the Director of Court Operations title and increase the position salary in City Court, to add positions and revise a position title in the Parks and Recreations Department, and to add and decrease positions in the Sanitary Sewer Utility, sponsored by Dine.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dine, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion on the council?
Yes, Mr. President, I have at least one question on this one. With the change there in the courts, is that going to eliminate, I understand there's a lot of cop time that takes place there from time to time. With this new alignment, and I don't know who can answer this, I don't know if the judge is here or not, but would that eliminate, my question is, comp time? Because I understand there's a lot of comp time that's accrued there in that.
I believe the mayor asked that
Yeah.
very same
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, the mayor asked, oh, the judge is here. Judge?
Yeah, I can speak to that. That's the comp time issue is not really the intent of this. I think it will have the benefit of reducing comp time. I'm restructuring the director of court operations so that most of those duties are going to be diffused among the other staff members. And we are taking an employee who has a good background and training in accounting and has been working with state government for a large number of years, and using that person's skills and talents and experience in the area of financial management, overseeing the court finances and probation finances, and working with state government. We're receiving at this point well over $100,000 a year from state government, and as well a certain amount of money from the county government, county quasi-governmental units. And we're considering making a very large request to the Department of Justice. But the comp time issue, I think, will be addressed by indirectly by this, by diffusing some of the operational responsibilities.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, then, sorry.
Mr. President, I'd just like to say something to the judge. Judge, I know several of us have been contacted about this by other employees, and I think that we look to you to get this under control.
I understand the council's concern, and I assure you that it's going to be one of my top priorities.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. All right, any other discussion on the council? Hearing none, then roll call ordinance 2011, second reading.
Lexi,
Aye.
Middleton,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Hopper.
Aye.
Ordinance 2111 passes second reading 9-0. Resolution 2108.
A resolution declaring certain area within the city of Greenwood an economic revitalization area and qualifying certain real property improvements for tax abatement and setting the time and place for a public hearing. CA Industrial Holdings LLC 2 Building Complex, sponsored by Campbell and Hopper.
So, motion by Mr. Hopper. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Do we need to amend it to?
You do need a motion to amend the public hearing date set forth in section 8 from May 3rd, 2021 to April 19, 2021.
Okay, we have motion by Mr. Bates, second by Mr. Hopper. Any discussion on the motion to amend resolution 2108? Hearing none, then roll call on the motion to amend resolution 2108.
Middleton,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
and Lexi.
Aye.
Resolution 2108 is amended on a vote of 9-0. Any discussion on resolution 2108?
Mr. President, I'd like to get some information for the council, if you would.
Yes.
In regards to the C industrial request, I would like to clear up some.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We all know who you are.
Patrick Sherman, Council's Point CPAs.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Some of the information that I wanted to bring to the council in regards to the approximately 46 acres that was the subject of an earlier zoning request. Right now, that is in 3 parcels. It'll be moved down into 1 parcel. Currently, the assessed valuation of those three parcels is approximately $63,000, and it's providing an annual tax of about $1,700. The request for tax abatement is the amount of tax that would be paid on these two buildings is going to be approximately $6 million over a 10-year period. The current tax would be $17,000 over that same 10-year period. The other item that I just wanted to bring to the council's attention would be that the implication that some of these wages in these buildings are inappropriate. And I would tell you that what you're going to be seeing over the next couple council meetings in the different CF1s that you will be having is the smallest one that I've seen in some of the ones we prepared was under 10 employees at $23.34 hourly rate. And then it goes from there to over 20 employees at an average rate of $29.22. Another one you're going to see is going to be just under 50 employees with an average rate of almost $34 an hour. You'll see another one that has just over 20 employees with a rate of $32 an hour. And then you can see a machine shop that will have a little over 20 employees, and that hourly rate, this is the average hourly rate, is $43.05 an hour. Another building is 48 employees, and it's almost $34 an hour. So the implication that these buildings do not have good wages is you can see from the facts that you have in front of you on a regular basis is just not accurate. So,
all right. Thank you. Any discussion on the council? Yes, Mr. Bates.
I was raising my hand because somebody else showed up on the screen there, and I thought maybe they wanted to talk. But they beat us out too.
All right, any discussion on the council? Hearing none, then roll call resolution 2108, second reading.
Williams.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Donnie.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
And Fiddle.
Nay.
Resolution 2108 passes second reading 7-2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Brings us to miscellaneous business. This is the second opportunity for members of the audience to address the council, this time concerning items that are not on the agenda. So if you're here tonight, wish to speak to the council, please speak up, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes, there's a 5-minute time limit. Anyone?
I just have one thing, Mr. Campbell, if I could, please. And again, Randy Gooden, 1157 Central Park Boulevard, South Greenwood, Indiana, 46143. Mr. Sherman, I'm not trying to say that manufacturing or industry is not the well-paying job. And I trust you, sir, I do. I've known you long enough you're telling me correct. It's the warehousing. Whenever I speak, and that's what I'm looking at, Mr. Sherman, just so you know, in future presentations and everything, it's because if you look at the area, and this is also for the council and everyone in leadership, we can't fill what we already have out there with warehousing. And those jobs are paying $18 to $20 an hour on average. And yet the people can't live here. And that's my concern. The industry, the advanced manufacturing and everything like that, I would fully be behind you and support you in that. And I just wanted you aware of that, sir. That's it, and the council, just so you all know where I'm coming from, in case there was any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time concerning items not on the agenda?
I just have a question for Mr. Sherman. I'm Christina Hunter. This is Nick Hunter. We were given the impression that these buildings that we're talking about, those 46 acres, are on spec. But I was getting the impression from Mr. Sherman that they're not on spec and they do have renters already set in place. Is that what you were referring to? Or are these on spec?
These were buildings that were built as speculative buildings that now are completed and are populated. So they are, the ones that are requests for abatement, they are speculative buildings. They do not have a tenant. These were brought before the council as speculative buildings, and now they have been populated. So that's the difference. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council concerning items not on the agenda? All right, hearing none. Moving on, any miscellaneous business from the council?
I have something really quick,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell. I'll make this quick. We all want to get home. Luckily, I've had 3 weeks to write this down and have done my best to remove the anger I felt since the last meeting we had. However, I feel that I have to address the poor decorum exhibited at our last meeting by elected officials. Talking on open microphone prior to the start of the meeting regarding someone's personal life is inappropriate and unprofessional. Regardless of the level of truth, the individual being related to a college basketball player or anyone else is inappropriate. The personal life of anyone in our community should not be broadcast with commentary, let alone anyone that my family or any other family in the community know and are close to. Next, we hold these meetings for the public to approach us with their comments and concerns. The way they are addressed with our responses has to be better. It is possible to address someone and correct them without barbs along the lines of yet again unclear. We work for our constituents, even if we disagree or they say something that needs correcting, and they should be addressed respectfully. Addressing individuals in this way only deters the public from coming to meetings and addressing the council. Lastly, I find it highly inappropriate and unprofessional for an elected official to speak passively or backhandedly when votes are not unanimous in the way they would like. To insinuate that those that do not agree with speculative buildings do not want to see the city progress is undermining the very reason we conduct meetings. While I may not agree with the views or votes of everyone in this room, I believe each one of us votes in a way to better the city in the best way we believe and see the city progress. This government is not set up for everyone to vote unanimously on items. I hear us tout Greenwood as a city of pride and progress, but intolerance of stances different than our own flies directly in the face of progress, and the actions at the last meeting have left me with more embarrassment than pride. We must be better to each other and our community members.
All right, anyone else on the council have anything? All right, we have several CF1s for consideration, and Ms. Coons, I have a question.
Okay.
There are 14 on the agenda, but there were 15 on SharePoint. Do we need to add the 15th one?
I only have 14, so those are the only ones I have knowledge of. If there were 15 on SharePoint, I am not aware of the 15th one.
All right, well then we'll just do the 14 that we had then. All right, number 1.
Okay. Delphi County Line Partners Association, Owner Association Resolution 1660 and substantial compliance.
We have a motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Number 2.
Now here's where we get kind of, all right, so half of these J&T properties I have questions about. KCH, Suite C, Suite D, I think it's just maybe those 3. They all appear to use the same numbers, which makes them not look correct, I would say. And actually, I mean, almost all of those, I think, use substantially similar numbers, but the rest of them look okay the way the numbers are. But those 3 in particular would make them not.
That would be number 2, 4, and 5 on our agenda.
Yeah. So, and then the other question I have, so in year 2, we say there's 117 new jobs and 134 jobs, total jobs. And then we come to year 3 and they only have 9 retained jobs, 0 new jobs, and only 9 total jobs. And the salaries are going down $5.8 million. So I think some of these are a hot mess. Maybe it's us. Then when we put together just the abatement record sheet, I didn't look super close to go down and actually see what was on this SB1. So maybe they're better down there. No.
All right. Ms. Coons.
2, 4, and 5 I have issues with.
2, 4, and 5, would you like us to contact their representatives and have them appear and answer specific questions? Because the information provided is what came from.
Yes.
Dustin, Mr. Huddleston, are you still on? I pulled up the one and you're on there. I don't know if he's probably watching the game already. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Yes, if you could have someone representing those three, would appreciate it at our next meeting.
I have a question along these lines then. I was hoping does anybody at the city do a prima facie check on these when they're received to make sure that the numbers illustrated, for example, when they say on the SB1 that at the time of our request, here's what we projected. Does anybody audit those to make sure that's really what they projected? I know we probably don't or don't often audit their current status, but does anybody at least check?
They give us the numbers that they originally said that they were going to try to hit.
Yeah, but I mean, does anybody match those up with what they actually originally said?
Yes, that's what
Yes, we look at the original SB1. That's why we try to put these charts together and say this is what they estimated and here's what their CF1 is.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah.
so somebody checks the CF1 against the SB1?
Yes.
Are we up against a deadline if we don't do these tonight?
No, you have 45 days from the time they're submitted to make a decision to find them either in substantial compliance or not. So one meeting should not be fatal.
Prefer to skip 2 through 9 just to make sure they're all.
I think I'm just guessing what he did was when the original SB1 was submitted, it was for one parcel.
Yeah, and they're various suites and they're using the same numbers for all of them though.
Yeah, but I think he probably just divided it by 9 or 4 or whatever the number is. I think he divided his original SB1 and allocated it among these CF1s, but he can explain it better than I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Hopper is suggesting that we skip 2 through 9. And since they're all the same building, and we have somebody look into those and something prepared for us at our next council meeting.
We need a motion? Was that second?
I
don't know if we need a motion if we just don't do it.
No, we don't need a motion. We just won't do them tonight. Yeah. I don't think we need a motion. We'll just skip them.
Did you say 2 through 9 or?
2 through 9, yeah.
2 through 9.
Okay.
I believe that's all the same building. It was originally one SB1 and now it's 7 different buildings or 7 different.
And there, let's see, A through H, maybe there's
It's all they've all got resolution 1616 by them.
Right.
Right. I believe that is the one that it was the abatement that is sort of a commercial condominium. So when it was finished out, it now has separate units that are separately owned.
Oh, is that the one that?
Yes, this is that particular tax abatement.
That we decided not to do again.
Yeah, that wouldn't do it again.
All right. It's a mess.
Skip 2 through 9 and go to number 10.
Okay, Greenwood BTS, resolution 1621, I find to be in substantial compliance.
Motion, have a second by Mr. Bates. Motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Hearing no opposition, it passes unanimously.
All right, War Supply, resolution 1621, I find to be in substantial compliance.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Now, I will note they had less jobs but higher salaries for all the jobs they do have. And it's
Hearing
very- it's
no
very close.
opposition, passes unanimously.
All right, I find LMVP Barris, resolution 1813 to be in substantial compliance.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Hearing none, passes unanimously.
Find Very Good Holdings, oh my, that's my favorite. Resolution 1903 to be in substantial compliance.
Motion, Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.
Find California Fruits and Flavors, Resolution 1903 to be in substantial compliance.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second by Mr. Bates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Other miscellaneous business, Corporation Council.
We have none.
Good answer.
Controller?
Nothing from me.
Thank you. The Mayor? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night.